What's up? Welcome to PowerPoint Night.
You used to call me on my...
We're doing another random PowerPoint, so let's get into it. For neuroimaging, we have an oldie but a goodie, MRI. For our hook, we have another classic, Doe. And for the all-important PowerPoint theme, we have main event. So, looks like it's time to get the PowerPoint across. I'll see you guys in a few minutes. So now we're at the main event of neuroimaging, MRI. I say so because according to some of the articles I looked up, mainly Corbin et al. 2019 and Alyami et al. 2020, MRI has been studied for almost 50 years. It's one of the oldest and most widely used forms of neuroimaging, which is why we call it an oldie and a goodie. So let's get started with some of the mechanisms. So MRI starts by localizing hydrogen atoms in the brain's water and fat concentrations. These hydrogen atoms can be either high energy, like me after coffee, or low energy, like me before coffee, also like the little sheep we see in the corner. So why is MRI? What does it do? Radio signals from the MRI machine can help protons in the hydrogen atom leap from low energy to high energy. From there, we reach a resonant frequency, which is a state in which protons absorb energy going from low to high. Then, turning off the signal in the machine helps protons go back to their low energy state, like me without coffee, and emit their own radio signals. This energy release correlates to the size of the magnetic field and helps give us an image of the brain in MRI. The machine then has to orient at different angles to gather a complete profile of information for a patient's brain. So, we have more mechanisms to discuss because there are several types of MRI. There is another type of MRI called functional MRI discussed by Baer, Connors, and Paradiso in 2016 that discusses using blood oxygenation, very similar to near-infrared spectroscopy. Then we have CEST MRI, which is a chemical exchange saturation transfer. And so these use paramagnetic or almost magnetic metals as probes for hydrogen atoms in water. These metals include iron or cupric copper. So this marks a chemical shift separation from water and protons. Because this measures pH, this can serve the additional function of detecting particular organic molecules such as neurotransmitters. Then we have PET MRI fusion. So PET stands for positron emission tomography. This is functional imaging that is used to track activity in the brain. So PET and MRI are complementary to each other, and PET can add functional information to MRI imaging and hopefully catch things that MRI doesn't. So as for the current uses and goals, MRI is mainly used in diagnosis and helps diagnose anatomical disorders such as tissue disease, otherwise known as histopathology. It's also useful in injury. It's extremely valuable for detecting brain tumor and injury currently because those are more anatomical, it doesn't involve very much activity, and finally, portability is a goal of the MRI. Low-field MRI might be available soon and reduce the invasiveness of the procedure. So, what are the pros and what are the cons? So again, we have a big list of them. For the pros, we have a lack of radiation compared to computerized tomography. We have a short scan time of 15 minutes. We have portable machinery in development. We have it usable on a variety of structures. According to Alyami and colleagues, they mentioned that MRI was also used on the prostate and rectum to check for tumors. And then it provides several angles of analysis. So we can measure the brain in slices in many different angles and get a whole load of information. However, we do have some cons. As of right now, the portable machinery is not usable, so it requires a large machine in a hospital that my personal experience would describe as claustrophobic, and it can confound with some other anatomical issues, such as parts per million disturbances in magnetism. For example, there are fluctuations in the lungs that can mess with the measurement, and vascular changes, like mirrors that can mess with the measurement. And then we have difficulty validating with biopsy, and the PET MRI fusion that I mentioned earlier needs more error correction and machine compatibility to be a widely used. And some CES MRI probes are toxic, such as manganese, so we still need to sort through to see which probes will be healthy to use. So that wraps up our presentation. Here are my references. So that wraps up our session on MRI. I'm hoping you learned a lot. Feel free to leave any questions in the comments, and I'll see you next time on It's a Gray Matter.
You used to call me on my
Another classic, Doge.